It was it was a day that your grandfather had come home to take myself and your mother Ellen shopping. Ellen was a baby, and she was born in March, and he was killed in November, right? So anyway, we for some unknown reason turned on the television, and we heard that he had been shot. We weren't sure at that point what had happened. And we waited and we waited and we waited, but all of the news broadcasts were really very. There was only one news broadcaster. All the information was being fed to him, and he was saying that things did not look good, and we were just shocked. It was like the whole world just came to an end, and then they said they presumed he was dead, but they weren't sure. And your grandfather, whom I never saw cry except when he found out his mother had cancer, went into the bathroom and he was crying. It was just such a terrible thing because we had, when JFK was elected president, we had a president's party at our house for all of our friends who were just overjoyed that he would be president, because at that point it was not easy because he was Catholic. And nobody wanted to elect a Catholic president because they thought the Pope would run the country. But anyway, he made it, and then I thought back of all the times that we had known that I was single and at home, and he was running for state. Well, he was running for congressman, and he came to our door with Dave Powers, and I didn't know what. They went into the living room and talked with my dad, who was a labor man. And my father said after they had gone, I'm going to endorse him. He's going to be a great congressman. And then from then he went on to be a senator. And I was married then. And, no, I'm sorry. He went on to be a senator, and I didn't, everyone was still happy about that. But then when he ran for president, I was married and I had children, and we lived in Quincy at the time. And he had a rally in Quincy, and I remember going there to see him with your grandfather. And I went over and talked to him, and I told him who I was, and he loved my father because my father was the first labor man to come out from him. My father, your grandfather, was president of the AFL-CIO in Massachusetts. And he came out for Jack Kennedy when he was a congressman and always was with him from then on. And in fact, he thought so much of your grandfather that when he got married, he invited my mother, your grandmother, and my father, your grandfather, to their wedding. And after they went, I said to my mother, was it nice? And she said it was beautiful. She said his wife is so sweet. And that was Jackie. And, we talked about it, but not that much. And actually, everyone in my era loved him. When he was running for Congress, the children used to come home from school to listen to his, no, I'm sorry, when he was president, they'd come home from school to listen to his news. He had a meeting with the press. I don't know how often it was, but even your uncles would sit in the living room and watch it on television. Everybody loved him. He had a charismatic ability to I guess he had a charismatic personality, and he drew everyone toward him. The young, the old, everybody loved him. And it was a sad 5 days when he died. Very sad 5 days.
Did people go to work, or did people...
No, people didn't go to work. Your grandfather worked for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts state, so he didn't have to go to work for the whole 5 days.
No one that worked for the state had to work?
I don't think anybody did. All of Massachusetts came to a stop. Maybe 3 or 4 days. I don't remember exactly. I know your grandfather didn't have to go, or didn't go, and it was a morning time. We just stayed by the television, just watched all the things that were happening. you know, the people going to the rotunda to see him laid out in the president. Well, he was in a closed casket, but to pass by his casket and then to watch them coming down Pennsylvania Avenue with the casket on top of well, I think they called it a pall, a big horse-drawn pall. And then most of all, to see young John salute his father's casket. It was a very emotional, sad time. People watched it because of out of sadness, and it was feeling like it was like they were part of his family and they had lost one of their own. That's how everyone in Massachusetts felt. Old, young, Republican, Democrat, Independent, everyone felt the same. I think it was because he was so young, so energetic, so handsome, so real. I think people felt that he was like their son, their brother, their child, you know. It was, I don't know, no one's ever been like him since, no one was ever like him before. He was a family man. You know, his family was so important in Massachusetts, and they were good living people. And he especially cared about the poor, the minorities, and people realized that, especially the younger people realized that no one had ever felt for the minorities before, or the poor, the way he did. And he was just so charismatic, as I said before. He just drew people toward him with the smile. He had the Irish humor. And when he had the press conferences that your uncles loved to watch, there was always a bit of humor, always humor in it, and but yet always great thoughtful discussion or thoughts that he had that he would give to or depart to the people that were watching, so that you realize that, you know, just like ask not what your country can do for you, but ask what you can do for your country. Those were things that you never forgot. And I don't think of any other president had that impact on people that he had.